The diplomatic summit was supposed to be the pinnacle of humanity's standing in the galaxy. Representatives from all corners of known space had gathered on Earth to witness the growth of an alliance that spanned decades. The Exilorians, once humanity's closest allies, had stood beside them through wars, civil unrest, and the rebuilding of shattered colonies. Earth was on the verge of joining the galactic elite, and the Exilorians were seen as the key to that future. The day began with a celebratory atmosphere, bright speeches, and promises of new advancements in technology and interstellar travel. But beneath the surface, an undercurrent of unease crept through the corridors of the human government. There was an unfamiliar tension in the air, a subtle awareness that something wasn't right. Yet no one expected the chaos that would unfold before their eyes. The signal came just as Earth's president, Eloise Jensen, was preparing to deliver her closing remarks. A sudden violent tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. The conference hall, once filled with laughter and handshakes, was now filled with panic. Emergency alarms blared across the complex, signaling a catastrophic breach of Earth's outer defenses. The screen on the podium flickered to life, displaying a live feed of Earth's orbital defenses being torn apart, one by one. A sleek, unfamiliar fleet had emerged from the void, bearing insignia that neither humanity nor the Exilorians recognized. Massive warships fired relentlessly upon Earth's space stations, turning them into debris within moments. The human forces stationed in orbit scrambled to mount a defense, but their efforts were futile against the overwhelming firepower of the unknown attackers. As the chaos unfolded, President Jensen's comms crackled to life. It was her chief military officer, General Ardent, urgently requesting her attention. "Ma'am, we need to act fast. The fleet's coming from all directions, and they've disabled every defense we have in the outer system. We're looking at a full-scale assault from..." Before he could finish, the feed cut off. A cold dread settled over the room. Jensen turned to her Xilorian counterpart, High Ambassador Elix, who had been standing just a few feet away. His calm demeanor seemed out of place amid the growing panic. Without saying a word, Elix turned, his eyes meeting hers with a knowing glance. And in that fleeting moment, something unspoken passed between them. A silent recognition that the world they had built together was beginning to crumble. "Elix, what's happening?" Jensen asked, her voice shaking with disbelief. I don't know, President Jensen," Elix replied, his voice too steady to be entirely sincere. "But I will ensure that my people will assist in any way we can." The words hung in the air like a poorly timed promise. Jensen's gaze drifted to the Exilorian fleet's flagship, visible now on every screen, positioned directly over the planet's surface. She didn't know why, but a gnawing feeling in her gut told her that Elix wasn't being truthful. Then, without warning, the lights flickered once more. The intercom buzzed with an announcement from Earth's Central Command. "Breach confirmed. The Exilorian fleet has disengaged from defense efforts. We are on our own." Jensen felt her blood run cold. The Exilorians, humanity's long-standing allies, had failed to act. Worse, their fleet was now positioned around Earth's capital, blocking all escape routes. This wasn't a simple attack, it was a siege, a coordinated effort. Her hand gripped the side of the podium, nails digging into the surface. "You knew?" she whispered, staring at Elix, her mind racing. "You knew this was coming." But Elix had already turned away, moving toward the exit, his expression unreadable. The betrayal, so quietly looming beneath the surface for years, had finally revealed itself in the most brutal way possible. The alliance was broken, and with it, Earth's future. Outside the conference hall, the first waves of enemy fighters began their descent. The battle for Earth had just begun. But one thing was certain: humanity would never again trust its allies so blindly. The chaos that had erupted on Earth's surface was nothing compared to the growing sense of betrayal that now festered in every corner of the human military. The Exilorians, once the shining example of galactic cooperation, were now traitors. They had stood idly by while unknown assailants pummeled Earth's defenses into oblivion, and their fleet was now in position, blocking every attempt to escape or call for help. President Jensen stood at the heart of Earth Command's war room, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy as if it were a twisted mockery of everything humanity had worked for. The Exilorian ships, once their greatest allies, had encircled Earth, their weapons now trained on the planet's major cities. At the edges of the system, a new enemy fleet moved into position, the Valkyrie. It was clear now that the Valkyrie and the Exilorians were working together, their dark alliance a silent promise to destroy Earth's place in the galaxy. "Ma'am, we can't hold them off for long," General Arden said, his voice grim. "They've got overwhelming firepower, and our fleet is too scattered. We need to figure out what the hell happened before it's too late." Jensen nodded. "What about the Exilorian defector, the one from the summit?" A flicker of hope crossed Arden's face. "Lieutenant Commander Lyra Fenris. She's been in contact with us. She claims to have vital intel about the Exilorian leadership's involvement with the Valkyrie." Fenris had been part of the Exilorian delegation to Earth, a highly respected officer with years of service. No one had suspected her as a traitor. Yet, as soon as the breach had begun, she had vanished from the summit, only to resurface hours later, transmitting encrypted messages from an unknown location. Her defection had been a shocking blow, an unexpected ally in a galaxy that had suddenly turned hostile. "We've got her coordinates," Arden continued. "She's holed up on the Exilorian moon of Zephyra. It's a dead zone, no official Exilorian presence, just an abandoned research station. We believe she has the intel we need." The room fell silent. Every soul in Earth Command knew the gravity of the situation. If Lyra Fenris had the answers, she was their only hope. But Zephyra wasn't just a simple mission. It was in the heart of Exilorian-controlled space, deep within enemy territory. "We'll send a covert team," Jensen decided, her voice firm despite the turmoil around her. The Silent Protocol. The Silent Protocol was humanity's most elite special forces unit, renowned for its stealth operations and high-risk missions. They were the best of the best, trained for situations just like this. To infiltrate Exilorian-controlled space, extract the defector, and bring her back alive was a mission unlike any other. Failure wasn't an option. Lieutenant Maya Ghost Voss, commander of the Silent Protocol, stepped forward, her dark eyes steely with resolve. "We'll be ready. I'll handpick the team myself. No room for mistakes." Jensen gave a sharp nod. "You have 24 hours to deploy. The longer we wait, the more dangerous this situation becomes. Earth's enemies are gathering strength by the minute." As the room bustled with preparations, Maya Voss turned to her team, a mixture of seasoned operatives from every branch of Earth's military. They had trained for everything: hostile environments, advanced enemy technologies, even betrayal from within their own ranks. But this mission, it seemed, was more personal than any other. She knew that Lyra Fenris was a key to their survival. If the Exilorian defector could confirm the full extent of her people's betrayal, Earth could mount a counteroffensive, one that might even force the Exilorians to reconsider their position. But that was a big if. They didn't know if Fenris would be an ally or another piece of the deception, one more layer in a web of lies spun by their former allies. Maya's thoughts were interrupted by a soft beep from her comms unit. The encrypted message had come through. "I'm ready to talk. Meet me at Zephyra," the message read. The team gathered in silence, each member gearing up for the perilous journey ahead. No one spoke, knowing full well that this mission would change everything. If they succeeded, they would learn the truth. If they failed, Earth might fall into the hands of those they once called allies. The Silent Protocol was now on its way to Zephyra, and nothing could prepare them for what they would find there. The stars outside the cockpit of the Silent Protocol's stealth shuttle flickered like distant fireflies as Maya Voss piloted the craft toward the barren moon of Zephyra. Her team sat in quiet concentration, each member fully aware of the stakes at hand. They weren't just infiltrating Silurian space, they were hunting for a single defector, one woman who might hold the key to everything. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Maya glanced at the heads-up display, confirming their trajectory. The stealth shuttle was nearly undetectable, cloaked from all forms of sensor scans. But the closer they got to Zephyra, the higher the risk of discovery. Silurian patrols roamed the moon's surface, though they were sparse. The research facility they were heading toward had been abandoned for years, but the Silurians still monitored it from afar. A few ships buzzed overhead, maintaining their usual patrols. For now, Maya's team remained invisible. 5 minutes to landing zone, Maya said over comms, her voice as calm as ever. Stay sharp. Roger that, came the response from Sergeant Riker, her team's heavy weapons expert. This place is as quiet as a tomb. I don't like it. I don't think quiet's the problem here, whispered tech specialist Leela Santoro. This whole place is a trap. I can feel it. Maya knew Leela was right. The mission felt too easy, too straightforward. Lyra Fenris had already sent the coordinates, but a defector in the middle of enemy territory, claiming to have vital intel? That was suspicious. Maya had led enough high-stakes operations to trust her instincts. Something wasn't adding up, but there was no turning back now. They landed on the outskirts of the abandoned research station with barely a sound. The shuttle's stealth systems had worked flawlessly, and the landing pad was empty, just as Fenris's message had promised. Still, Maya's grip tightened on the controls, her eyes scanning the barren landscape. Zephyra's surface was a mixture of rocky plains and craggy cliffs. The station stood isolated, a cold, metallic structure half buried under years of accumulated dust. It looked deserted. The team disembarked, each operative moving with practiced precision. They wore dark, form-fitting exosuits, designed for minimal sound and maximum agility. Weapons were holstered, but each member was ready. Maya led the way, her footsteps silent against the surface of the moon. The research station's door opened with a soft hiss as they approached. Maya motioned for the team to spread out. Keep your eyes peeled. If this is a trap, we'll be walking into it. The team moved in, the dim light inside the facility casting long shadows across abandoned equipment and old research logs. It felt like a ghost town. Empty rooms, overturned furniture, and flickering lights created an eerie atmosphere that sent a chill down Maya's spine. She'd led many missions into hostile environments, but this was different. Something about the emptiness was unsettling. In the central chamber, a single figure stood by a console, bathed in the faint glow of the equipment. Lyra Fenris. Her features were just as Maya remembered them from the summit, but there was a hardness to her eyes now, a sense of desperation. You came, Lyra's voice was soft, almost relieved. I wasn't sure you would. Maya stepped forward, her hand hovering near the weapon at her side. We got your message. What's going on here? Why the secrecy? Lyra turned slowly, her gaze shifting between the team members, as if assessing their readiness. It's worse than you think, she said. The Ixilorians haven't just betrayed you. They've been planning this for years, shaping the galaxy's future in ways you can't even imagine. Earth wasn't just a target. You were the first. Maya narrowed her eyes. What do you mean, the first? Lyra's eyes darkened. The Valkyrie weren't just a mercenary force. They were part of a larger plan. Earth was meant to be the first world to fall, a symbolic blow to the Galactic Order. Maya's pulse quickened, her mind racing. But why? Why Earth? It's not about Earth, Lyra whispered. It's about control. The Ixilorians were never interested in peace. They wanted to control the galaxy. Earth's rise was an obstacle. You're the only species capable of standing against them. Maya's heart skipped. Earth had become a beacon of hope in the galaxy, a symbol of resistance. But now, that very symbol was at the center of an intergalactic conspiracy. Before she could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor. Lyra's face went pale. They know we're here. Maya's hand tightened on her weapon. Get ready. We have to move now. But as the team advanced, ready to extract Lyra, the station's doors slammed shut with a deafening clang. The trap had sprung. The silent protocol was no longer the hunters. They were the prey. The walls of the research station seemed to close in as the door slammed shut with a resounding bang. Maya's eyes flicked to Lyra, who now stood frozen, a look of shock on her face. The tension in the air was palpable. This wasn't the reunion they had expected. This wasn't just about extracting a defector, it was about surviving a trap. Move, now. Maya barked, instinctively taking charge as the team immediately formed defensive positions. Sergeant Riker, ever the soldier, moved quickly to cover the rear, while Lila Santoro, the team's tech expert, moved to the main console. Her fingers flew over the keys, trying to disable any security protocols that might be locking them in. I can't get through the system. Leela grunted in frustration. It's encrypted, advanced military-level codes. Maya cursed under her breath. They were already being set up, and there was no way out, at least not through the front door. The only option now was to fight their way through, but that would draw more attention. The sound of footsteps grew louder, and Maya's sharp hearing caught the unmistakable click of boots, no longer just a few guards, but a full assault team. They're bringing in reinforcements, Riker muttered, his weapon at the ready. Lyra, now visibly trembling, stepped closer to Maya. You have to understand, I didn't want this. I didn't know they would target Earth until it was too late. By the time I realized. Enough, Maya interrupted, her voice low but firm. I don't care about your reasons, Lyra. Right now, you're the only one who can help us get out of here alive. So talk. How do we get past their lockdown? Lyra's face twisted in pain, her eyes betraying the internal battle she had fought for so long. There's a hidden exit, an emergency hatch that leads into the tunnels beneath Sephira's surface. But it's protected by a series of biometric locks. You need my clearance to open it. Maya hesitated. It was risky. They had no idea how deep the betrayal ran, or whether this was a final act of manipulation. But with no other choice, she motioned to Leela. Get the hatch open, Maya ordered. Leela moved to a nearby terminal, her eyes scanning the code. She glanced over her shoulder at Maya. It's going to take a minute. It's an advanced system. We'll need to bypass the locks one by one. Make it quick, Maya said, scanning the corridor for any signs of movement. Her hand gripped the hilt of her combat knife. They weren't getting out of here without a fight. Suddenly, the comms crackled to life with a distorted voice. You should have never trusted me, Maya. Lyra's voice echoed through the station's intercom, cold and calculated. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Maya's blood ran cold. The voice wasn't coming from the woman standing next to her. It was coming from the walls themselves. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed and the facility's air conditioning system hissed to life. The low hum of machines coming online reverberated through the station. Maya's mind raced, piecing together the puzzle. It's a setup, Maya growled. She's been playing us all along. Leela shot a look at Maya, her fingers still dancing over the console. Almost there, just one more sequence. Maya had no time to wait. She sprinted down the corridor, her heart pounding as she flanked the door. The footsteps were growing louder, closer now. The station had already become a labyrinth of shifting corridors and rooms that echoed with the sounds of an impending siege. Then, through the narrow windows of the hallway, Maya saw them. The Exilorian guards, dozens of them, heavily armed, marching with purpose. Their faces were grim, expressions that were both familiar and foreign to Maya. They had been allies. They had once stood by humanity's side. But now they were the enemy. Maya turned back to the team, signaling them to prepare for the worst. Get ready. We're going to have to fight our way out. Lara, still standing at the console, gave a soft, anguished laugh. You think this is a fight you can win? This isn't just about Zephyra. It's about the future of the galaxy. Maya's fingers tightened around her weapon. I don't care about your future. I care about keeping my people alive. The emergency hatch suddenly hissed open with a mechanical groan, but it was too late. The Exilorians were already upon them. We're out of time, Maya said, her voice cold, determination setting in. Move. With no other options, Maya led the charge, her team following in perfect synchronization. The silent protocol wasn't about to go down without a fight, no matter how many enemies stood in their way. This was a battle for survival, and they weren't going to lose it without a fight. The air in the corridor was thick with tension, a heaviness that made every breath feel like an effort. Maya led the charge, her feet pounding against the cold metal floors as the team sprinted toward the emergency hatch, now their only chance of escape. Behind them, the sound of Silurian boots echoed, relentless and closing in. There was no time to waste. They had seconds, maybe less, before the station would be swarming with enemy forces. Keep moving, Maya barked, her voice cutting through the noise as she vaulted over a fallen beam. The hatch ahead beckoned, its narrow passage the only way out of the trap. Sergeant Riker, his heavy rifle gripped tightly in his hands, was the first to reach the hatch. He threw open the steel door and glanced over his shoulder, his eyes meeting Maya's. We're clear for now, but we don't have much time. Maya nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. The escape route they had hoped for was now a lifeline, fragile and uncertain. There was no guarantee the tunnels beneath Zephyra would lead them to safety, but it was their only option. She motioned for the team to move quickly. One by one, they filed into the narrow passage. The air was thick with dust and the faint hum of distant machinery. The tunnel stretched out ahead of them, twisting and turning in ways that Maya couldn't track in the dim light. Their footsteps were muffled by the smooth stone, but the sound of pursuit was never far behind. As soon as the last member of the team, Leela, stepped into the tunnel, Maya slammed the hatch shut, securing it behind them with a loud clang. The sound was deafening in the stillness of the tunnels. They couldn't afford to rest. The Exilorians would be right behind them, and there was no telling how many reinforcements they had. Maya turned, scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. The tunnel seemed endless, winding into the unknown. There was no telling what lay ahead. We need to keep moving, Maya said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. If they catch up with us here, we'll be trapped. The team nodded silently, understanding the stakes. Riker took point, his weapon at the ready, while Maya stayed at the rear, watching for any signs of pursuit. Lyra, who had been unusually quiet since their escape, stepped closer to Maya, her eyes wide with uncertainty. I didn't want this, Lyra murmured. I didn't want any of this. Maya glanced at her, but didn't respond. There was no time for words, not now. The betrayal was still too fresh, too raw. If Lyra's actions had led them to this point, there would be no forgiveness, not until the mission was over. The sound of movement from behind startled them, and Riker spun, his weapon raised. A shadow darted across the tunnel, just out of view, but no one had seen anyone approach. It was the kind of feeling that made the hairs on the back of Maya's neck stand on end. Contact, Riker shouted, spinning on his heels. He was already on alert, but even he hadn't expected it to come this quickly. Maya drew her weapon, moving toward Riker's position. Hold tight. No one moves until we figure out where they're coming from. She motioned for Leela to set up a defensive perimeter with her tech, and within seconds, the small tech specialist had laid out a series of motion detectors, her fingers flying over her datapad to connect them to their communication system. I'm getting blips. They're coming closer, Leela said, her voice tight. Too many to count. Not good enough, Maya muttered, her eyes scanning the darkness. The tunnel was constricting, with only the faintest glimmers of light reflecting off the smooth stone. It felt like they were walking into a tomb, every step a calculated risk. There was no way to know how many enemies were closing in, or where they were coming from. They had no choice but to fight their way through. Maya turned to Lyra. You said the Xylorians were planning to control the galaxy. What else aren't you telling us? Lyra hesitated, and for a moment, the silence between them felt like an eternity. Then her voice broke the stillness. It's bigger than just Earth. The Xylorians are working with the Valkyrie, cultists from the far side of the galaxy. They've been planning a galactic war, and Earth is only the first domino. Maya's jaw clenched. The web was more tangled than she had thought. This wasn't just about survival. It was about a galaxy teetering on the edge of destruction, and the Silent Protocol, now more than ever, was Earth's last hope. We'll take them down, one fight at a time, Maya said, steeling herself. We have to get out of here first. Then we end this, no matter the cost. With that, the team braced themselves for what was coming. The Xylorians might have thought they had the upper hand, but they were about to learn that the Silent Protocol wasn't just another target. They were humanity's last line of defense, and they would never go down without a fight. The atmosphere in the tunnels had grown suffocating. The air, thick with dust, and the distant rumble of hidden machinery made every breath a conscious effort. Maya's eyes were locked ahead, every nerve on high alert as her team moved cautiously forward. Their shadows flickered along the stone walls, a stark contrast to the stillness of the underground world. The sound of the approaching Xylorians had stopped. For a few heartbeats, the silence felt like a fragile lie. The enemy had to be close, but where? Stay sharp, Maya ordered, her voice low, every word a command to maintain their focus. Sergeant Riker moved ahead, his rifle poised, eyes scanning the darkness. He signaled for the team to slow down, each of them falling into a tight formation, ready to respond at the slightest hint of danger. Lyra, still visibly shaken, walked beside Maya. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep up, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. The Xylorians have eyes everywhere. They know the tunnels better than we do. Maya shot her a quick, sidelong glance. There was no time for sympathy. We've come this far, Lyra. Either you help us get through this, or we all die here. The choice is yours. Lyra swallowed hard and nodded, her face set with grim resolve. They pressed forward, the winding passages leading them deeper into the underground maze. Maya's mind was racing. The more Lyra revealed, the more convoluted their situation became. It wasn't just the Xylorians who were a threat now. The Valkyrie, the cultists allied with them, were a wild card. If they truly had the power they were rumored to possess, no amount of firepower would stop them. This mission was no longer about escaping an enemy. It was about facing down a threat that could reshape the galaxy. Maya's thoughts were interrupted as Riker's voice broke through the tension. Hold up, he muttered. I hear something. Maya immediately stopped, signaling the team to take cover. They huddled in a small alcove, barely visible in the dim light. She strained to listen, her heart beating faster with every passing second. The sound that reached her ears wasn't the familiar stomp of boots on metal. It was something different, something subtler. A soft clicking, like claws scraping against stone. Riker's eyes widened in realization. It's not Xylorians. Before Maya could respond, the sound grew louder, the low scraping growing into a shrill, piercing noise. Something, or someone, was moving through the walls themselves. What the hell? Leela whispered, her eyes wide in horror. What is that? A growl echoed from the darkness, followed by the unmistakable snap of sharp claws. The hairs on the back of Maya's neck stood on end as the first of the creatures emerged from the shadows. A large, grotesque hybrid of insect and reptile, its eyes glowing a sickly yellow. Its chitinous exoskeleton glistened in the dim light, and the sound of its breath was a low hiss that sent chills down Maya's spine. "The Valkyrie's beasts," Lyra muttered, her voice tight with fear. "They're sentinels, genetically engineered to track down anyone they deem a threat." Maya's grip tightened on her weapon. These weren't just beasts. They were assassins, designed for one purpose: to eliminate anyone who dared stand in the way of the Valkyrie's plans. Riker raised his rifle, taking aim. "There's too many of them." Maya's mind raced. They couldn't fight their way through a horde of genetically enhanced monsters, not without heavy casualties. But retreating would only drive them further into the labyrinth, where the Xylorians would be waiting. "Leela," Maya said, her voice steady despite the rising tension, "get that console open. I don't care what it takes. Find us a way out of here." Leela nodded, her fingers already flying over her datapad, but her face was tight with fear. "If they get too close, I won't be able to." "We won't let them," Maya interrupted, taking a step forward. She glanced at Riker and the rest of the team. "We hold the line here. Focus on keeping them back. Leela, you focus on getting us a way out." The creatures advanced, their sharp mandibles clicking and clacking in a rhythm that made Maya's skin crawl. It was a sound she would never forget. In the blink of an eye, one of the beasts lunged at Riker, its claws slashing through the air with terrifying speed. He fired, but the blast barely phased it. It hissed, its body shifting like liquid as it darted toward him again. "Watch your back," Maya yelled, firing into the creature's side. The shot didn't kill it, but it staggered back, giving Riker a moment to regain his footing. "Damn it," Riker swore, retreating a few steps. "These things are tougher than they look." Maya's mind raced. They couldn't hold out much longer. They needed an escape, and fast. "Leela," Maya shouted again. "I need that exit now." Leela's fingers trembled as she typed furiously, her eyes darting from the screen to the advancing beasts. She looked up, fear in her eyes. "There's a passageway to the east, but the doors are locked down. I need a few more seconds." The Valkyrie sentinels were closing in, their eyes glowing with malicious intent. Maya's heart pounded as she steeled herself for the fight of her life. The sound of the beast's claws scraping against the stone grew louder, filling the tunnel with an unsettling rhythm. Maya's breath quickened, her fingers tight around the grip of her weapon as she surveyed the advancing horde. They were nearly upon them. Each of the monstrous creatures hissed and snapped its mandibles, eyes glinting with the promise of death. The air around her felt charged, heavy with anticipation. The tunnel was closing in, the walls pressing in on them. There was no more room for retreat. They would have to fight. Each second, each move would determine if they survived this nightmare. Riker fired again, sending another shot into the oncoming beast, but it barely flinched. He ducked as the creature swiped with its claws, narrowly missing him. The creature's sleek, armored body was like a wall of living armor that shrugged off blaster fire. The scent of burnt chitin filled the air as the shots continued to fly, but it wasn't enough. Maya knew that in this tight space, fighting was a gamble. They couldn't hold off the creatures for much longer. But Leela's frantic voice cut through the tension, pulling her focus back to their mission. "I've almost got it." Leela's hands moved at lightning speed over her datapad, eyes darting back and forth between the screen and the door's control panel. "Just one more second, please." Maya looked over her shoulder at Riker and the rest of the team, locking eyes with each of them. The decision was clear. We hold the line for Leela, no matter what. Riker gave a quick nod, his jaw tight with determination. Understood. He turned his attention back to the monstrous creatures charging at them. Maya's heart raced as she took her position beside him, her weapon aimed directly at the nearest sentinel. The creatures seemed to move faster now, closing in like an unstoppable force. They were relentless, each strike coming faster and more vicious than the last. One of the sentinels lunged at Riker again, its claws extended like deadly blades. He barely managed to sidestep, but the force of the creature's swipe sent him tumbling backward. The sentinel was quick, too quick, and in a flash, it was on him. Its mandibles snapped around his arm, locking in like a vice. "Riker!" Maya shouted, her blood running cold. She raised her weapon, taking careful aim. She had only one shot. The blaster erupted in her hands, the shot hitting the beast squarely in the side. The creature screeched in pain, letting go of Riker's arm, but it wasn't enough to take it down. It spun toward her, its eyes burning with fury. Riker scrambled to his feet, gritting his teeth as he fired back, keeping the creature distracted. Maya didn't hesitate. With a quick, fluid motion, she reached out to pull Riker toward her, shouting at him to get to safety. "Move, now," she barked. Riker didn't argue. He stumbled toward the tunnel's edge, where Leela's frantic fingers finally found the last piece of the puzzle. "Done!" Leela screamed in relief. With a screeching mechanical sound, the door to the escape tunnel clicked open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit passageway leading deeper into the underground labyrinth. "Go, go!" Maya shouted, pushing Riker toward the door. He didn't need any more urging, and as he ducked into the passage, Maya covered the rear. The creatures, enraged by the noise and the fresh scent of blood, charged forward, closing the distance between them. Maya gritted her teeth. They were right on their heels. As the last of her team filed into the passage, Maya was the last to retreat. She moved quickly, but the snap of claws behind her was deafening. She dove into the passage just as the creature lunged for her, narrowly missing her by a hair. The door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous boom. For a moment, there was only silence. Maya's chest heaved as she leaned against the wall, her heart racing, her pulse still high from the adrenaline. She took a deep breath, looking around at her team. They had made it, but barely. Riker, his arm injured but functional, gave her a strained grin. That was too close. "We don't have time to relax," Maya said, her voice steady but filled with the weight of the moment. "We keep moving. The Valkyrie and their beasts won't stop hunting us." Leela was already ahead of them, scanning a map of the tunnels she'd just pulled up. "There's another access point up ahead," she said, her voice still shaky. "It'll get us closer to the surface. But it's a dangerous route. I don't know if it's clear." Maya nodded grimly. "We don't have a choice. Lead the way." The group began to move again, the tension between them palpable as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. Each turn felt like a trap waiting to snap shut, and every step was heavy with the knowledge that they were far from safe. They hadn't escaped yet. The battle for their lives was only just beginning. And as they moved deeper into the unknown, Maya's thoughts turned to the final confrontation. The Excelorians had betrayed them, and now the Valkyrie were hunting them. They would have to face both and survive. The air in the tunnel had grown thick with the oppressive weight of uncertainty. Maya's team moved with determination, each step echoing off the stone walls, but the sense of dread never left. They were nearing the surface, but the danger was far from over. Every flicker of movement in the shadows, every distant rumble, kept them on edge. Leela led the way, her fingers brushing the walls as she checked every possible passage, every potential trap. Riker, his injured arm now secured with a hastily fashioned bandage, stayed close to her, ready to react at the first sign of trouble. Maya brought up the rear, scanning their surroundings with every sense alert, ready for anything that might emerge from the dark. "How much further?" Riker asked, his voice hoarse, the exhaustion starting to take its toll. Leela didn't look back as she moved, but her answer came with a hint of urgency. "We're close. The access point should be right ahead, but I don't know how much time we have before they find us." "Then we move fast," Maya ordered. "No one gets left behind." The tension in the air was palpable, a knot in Maya's stomach growing tighter with every passing second. They had already fought their way through relentless hordes of Valkyrie sentinels, and with the Xalorians' betrayal hanging over them, there was no telling how much more they would have to endure before they reached safety. Suddenly, a shrill screech echoed through the tunnel, sending chills down Maya's spine. It was too loud to ignore. The sound of claws scraping against stone followed, reverberating off the walls as something, or someone, moved fast, closing in. "They found us," Maya muttered under her breath, her grip tightening on her weapon. Leela's eyes widened in fear. "It's too late to outrun them. We need to fight our way out." Maya glanced at her team. Riker was already aiming his rifle at the oncoming threat. "We hold here," Maya commanded, steeling herself for the battle to come. "Everyone get to cover." They took positions along the edges of the narrow tunnel. Lara, her face pale but determined, ducked behind a crumbled pillar. Riker, his rifle raised, peered around a corner, his posture rigid and ready to fire. Maya stood at the rear, eyes locked on the dark stretch ahead. Then the first of the creatures appeared. It wasn't just a single sentinel. The tunnel was flooded with them, their glowing yellow eyes piercing the darkness like hunting predators. Their bodies rippled in unnatural fluidity, the chitinous plates of their exoskeletons gleaming in the dim light. Behind them, figures in dark robes moved with eerie precision. Valkyrie cultists, the true masterminds of the hunt. The battle erupted in an instant. Riker opened fire, his shots ringing out, striking one of the creatures in the chest, but it didn't stop. It lunged forward, its claws slashing through the air, narrowly missing Riker by inches. He stepped back, unloading another round into its face, this time taking it down with a violent thud. "Fall back," Maya shouted as more sentinels poured into view. They couldn't hold the line here, not against so many. The team began to retreat slowly, firing as they moved, but the creatures were relentless. Each step back was met with a new wave of monstrous beasts. Maya's mind raced. They couldn't just keep retreating. This was their last chance. "We have to make it to the access point," she said, determination surging through her. "Leela, can you access the door?" Leela, her hands shaking, tapped rapidly on her datapad. "Almost there, but the lock is encrypted. I need more time." Maya's eyes flicked to the advancing Valkyrie, then to the narrow tunnel ahead. They didn't have more time. "Cover her," Maya commanded, stepping forward, the air thick with the scent of blood and adrenaline. She took aim at the nearest Valkyrie cultist, firing with precision, sending it reeling backward. The rest of her team fell in line, protecting Leela as she continued to work on the lock. Shots rang out, each burst of blaster fire lighting up the darkened passageway. Seconds felt like hours as the door loomed ahead, just beyond their reach. "Got it," Leela shouted, and the door behind her clicked open with a loud metallic groan. "Move," Maya yelled, turning to sprint toward the door. The team rushed toward the opening, but just as Maya reached the threshold, she turned back, her eyes searching for stragglers. One of the sentinels had managed to close the gap. It was only a few feet away. Maya's heart pounded as she realized what needed to be done. Without hesitation, she fired one last shot, hitting the creature squarely in the chest, but it didn't fall. She had no more time. With a final, desperate glance at her team, Maya lunged into the open doorway, just as the sentinel's claws swiped at the air where she had been standing. The door slammed shut behind her, cutting off the pursuit. They were safe for now. As the team took a moment to catch their breath, Maya's mind raced, the weight of the mission pressing down on her. They had survived, but the true battle was yet to come. The Valkyrie, the Xalorians, the betrayal, it was only the beginning. Maya turned to face her team. "This isn't over. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for the galaxy." And as the door to the access tunnel closed behind them, Maya knew the final confrontation was drawing nearer. Whatever it took, humanity would fight back. The silent betrayal would not go unanswered. The war had just begun,